Back at it again with another episode. Not wearing any shoes today or socks, but we are here to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart because this is something that I deal with clients, with prospects, with consultations, with people day in, day out. And it is what we're going to call corporate pathological endemic. And what we mean by that is the standard of how most people go through life, working corporate jobs, working for the man. Most people that are dealing with this kind of thing are not working for themselves, but they are in a position where it can feel sticky, it can feel difficult, it can feel like there is little to no hope that you can have both a high-paying job, a wonderful physique, a wonderful mindset around everything health and wellness, and still be able to be social and have a personal relationship and have a romantic relationship. It seems almost not possible because of some of the things that we're doing day to day. So I want to kind of start off with, hey, what in your mind, Andy, are the things that are the foundation for how we've gotten to this place where everyone is less healthy than they should be? No one has any idea about anything in their body. We're under moving. We're like, how did we get here and where can we go?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, with that, I think there's so much information out there now that people just get overwhelmed. It's almost paralysis by overanalysis, I would say. I've been victim of that myself in the past. There's so many contradicting pieces. I don't even call them evidence, right? But just pieces of information that people try to, that I think a lot of times people just throw their hands up and say, well, I don't know what to do, right? Whether that be what should they eat, how much should they eat, timing of when they should eat. I know both of us are in more of the fitness community. And so we hear a lot about all these different metrics as far as food goes, right? High protein, low fat, right? Low carb, high fat, high carb, high protein, low fat, et cetera. Timing of meals, et cetera. I think too, this mindset of, well, I can sleep when I'm dead mentality. I live to work. The grind can look different, I think, but I think a lot of us, I'm not sure what generation we are, if we're Gen X or Gen Z, I can't remember, but I think a lot of us, our parents grew up with the mindset of, hey, you graduate high school. Some of them went to college, right? Maybe a lot of them were first timers in college, right? If they didn't, they went right into the workforce. They found a job and they worked that job for 30, 40, 50 years until retirement, right? If they get to retire. And then that was it. They didn't really I can't speak for everyone, but they didn't really have this elaborate option to do many things. It was just the daily grind, right? And so now what I think we're finding is that this dichotomy of, that's still kind of lingering. Everybody should graduate college, everybody should graduate high school, then go to college, then get a job, right? Whether it be in corporate or something else. And I think that we're finding that those that kind of leak out into entrepreneurship or maybe do something a little bit off the beaten path. I was a full-time coach and did various other jobs that I didn't build up a whole, I guess, stack of financial wealth doing all that stuff, but I was able to kind of experience what life looked like, diving into my own health and seeing what was really valuable to me. And so I'm kind of, do I wish I had more financial stability? For sure. But my health and wellness is far more valuable than, getting a paycheck. I think a lot of people can have both, but people might be stuck in this mindset that, well, wait, I need to do this job for 30 plus years, right? Because doing something consistently for a long period of time it has shown to get people in a better position than if they just bounce around 30 jobs over 30 years, right? But with all this information coming out about, like you just said, this corporate pathological endemic, right, that we coined it, Okay. I think people are trying to get healthier. They just don't know where to start. And I think with all these conflicting, crossing over entity and bodies that give us information that kind of contradict, like, oh, hey, walk for 10,000 steps a day, you're good. Hey, walk for 30 minutes a day, you're good. These bare minimum things, get 8 to 9 hours of sleep, per night, etc. That's not really setting people up for success. It's kind of setting the bar super, super low. That leaves them kind of, why do I end up with this disease or this ache and pain? I've been walking 10,000 steps a day. Are they walking 10,000 steps around their house, doing a bunch of, chores, getting exposed to a bunch of chemicals, not getting outside? Are they stressing while they're doing this? Or are they getting outside, moving around, getting out in nature, getting some sunlight, having good relationships, stimulating their body, their brain? So there's a multitude of facets that people, I think, at some point they probably just throw their hands up and say, well, what can I do? Because they think that at the end of the day, their best choice is, I hate to say it, get a paycheck, do their job, right? And then everything else, just, I need to make room for that. And it falls by the wayside because, their reason to do it just isn't as high of a priority, because it hasn't been entrenched into their mindset that, hey, you only get one body, you get one life, and you can't go backwards.
Yeah. So, I mean, in your mind, with these minimum recommendations, right? With the steps, with, hey, here's your 2,000 daily value, calories. Here's your macros that you need to hit. Here's, if you just do these things, you'll be good to go. If you just get these, like, do you think that perhaps some of this is just, it's not necessarily like these are minimums, but these are oversimplifications of recommendations that have led people astray, because then they think not that, hey, this is a minimum I need to do, but because this is such a broad stroke, this is all I need to do. Because on the public health side, we potentially are trying to reach more people, speak more layman's terms, and try to have bigger, broader reach to more people of different subsets of populations that look different, that talk different, that live differently. And so some of these recommendations, while maybe positively informed, have been a little bit ill recommended, like we're trying to help people, but maybe we might be hurting people overall more by just broad stroking everything with zero context.
I think it's probably a little bit of both. It's both the bare minimum, but also very, very broad. And it's, you can look at it from two different angles. One, you can say like, well, they're hurting people, or they're just trying to do enough where they're helping, but they may not be moving the needle too far, in most demographics. So I think it's where it's like running. I'm going to use this analogy. So unless there's any kind of some pathological reason why this person should not be ambulatory and running, everyone, normal human being, was built for running. Okay. However, running looks different for everyone. We try to put it into this box of, well, you should toe strike, or you should midfoot strike, or you should heel strike. The fact of the matter is, everyone will run differently, because that's everyone's body is just a little bit different. So as far as like the basic recommendations is, yeah, everybody should be, walking whatever the minimum that they require, 10,000 steps, right? People should be putting in good food, 2,000 calories, intake. I think for males, 2,000 and 1,700 calories for females is like the blanket statement. But that's not true for everyone. BMI, right? I'm overweight on the BMI scale. James, you're obese on the BMI scale. Like, those metrics are general metric to just kind of quantify, hey, you should be here within your height and within your weight, right? But geez, if you got somebody who's 5'9", weighing 215, 220 of pure solid muscle, that scale is going to be way thrown off, and that metric's going to show him as overweight. So it's a very blanketed base overly simplified metric. And I think that's what a lot of these institutions like NIH and CDC come out with, not to harm people, not because they might not know any better, but because if they spent the time to come up with what each individual person or each individual, you can even say like demographic, right? Which would still be very broad, would be impossible to do. But that's where I think you and I and everybody else should have this understanding that those are the bare minimums. And that if you do strive for more, like instead of walking 10,000 steps a day, you ran 10,000 steps in a day. Like those are two different things, right? You'll get two different adaptations from that, right? And like let's say you're already accustomed to doing that. Oh, cool, I can keep doing that. Let's say you've never ran 10,000 steps a day in your life, and day one, you go out and do that, right? Your body's going to let you know the adaptation that just occurred. You're going to be sore, tired, thirsty, probably starving, right? Feel like you got ran over by a dump truck. But the more you do it, the better your body adapts to it. And then you can start running for 15,000, 20,000, etc. So, and that goes with anything else in life. Going to the gym, you got to get uncomfortable in order to gain growth. Your body will let you know when enough is enough. Now, sometimes that looks like overtraining. Sometimes that can look in varied forms, but sometimes that can be you get sick, right, because of overtraining. Sometimes that can be you're overly sore. Sometimes that's you can get what's called atrophy, which is where you overdid it and then your muscles start to decrease in size and strength. But those are signals that your body tells you, hey, that's enough. You pushed it too far, and that's a learning point. So people need to, I think, become more aware of what their body's telling them. And the signals that are going off. Your body will tell you when you're thirsty. You don't have an external calendar and alarm naturally that tells you, hey, it's time to drink. Right? Your body will tell you that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, James?
I think that from a public health standpoint, and I think that there's a lot of people that we both know that are RDs, that are in policy, that are in these organizations that we're talking about, that would probably agree with us when we say that if we were going to give more than generalized recommendations for everyone of every subset of the population, there's no way, one, that we have the infrastructure to disseminate that information where it would get to people's eyes and ears. Number two, it would be so overwhelmingly confusing for people that don't have a base understanding of fitness and nutrition, because there's still people that don't have any idea how to read a label on the back of a piece of food, or how to read macronutrient breakdowns at a restaurant, or how to read, how many grams of carbs a cup cooked of rice is, right? And the difference between weight and the macronutrient breakdown. Like, I think that there's such an education gap, right? An empowerment, and it really comes down to, in my mind, an empowerment gap where like public policy could not inform people to all of the general or all the specific recommendations, and it has to stay general. So I think that that's like maybe one problem that you and I don't have really the power to fix. However, I think that is something that can be overcome by personal responsibility and a thirst for knowledge. Because I think at the end of the day, you can look at a PT, you can look at a chiro, you can look at an MD, you can look at a naturopath, you can look at a trainer, you can look at anyone to give you the answer, or you can just go get the damn answer yourself. And I get it, right? Some people that are most affected by these general recommendations that are being given out, because they're not fact checking them, they're not implementing them in their life and then testing them and seeing if they work. They're just taking them as evidence for truth, right? It is the Bible for my health because the government said so. Because I don't have enough time in Maslow's hierarchy of need, I don't have enough ability to worry about an ascension point here because I am working minimum wage, multiple jobs, trying to care for kids and what have you. So, I think that the individuals that are most affected by these general recommendations are also the ones that had the least access to extra education, extra money, and access to coaching, right? Like, how many people that are on food stamps are going to be able to come into your office, right, and get adjusted and see you or Dr. Brian? How many of those same people are going to be able to come into coaching with us, right? Maybe on a free side, but outside, like if you are on EBT, you're on food stamps. It doesn't make you a bad person. Doesn't mean anything sideways, but it does mean that your access to one-on-one individual communication with someone that's in the know is limited unless you're going to be on YouTube, right? At a public library or on the internet in some format. And I think that, the individuals that we're speaking to in this video, maybe some are like that, but I think that like those individuals sometimes are doing the best that they can, but they also have to be aware that the government and all these food manufacturers usually make all of the EBT, food stamps and other things, so easy to use on foods with tons of ingredients. And they make those foods so cheap that they can load up on them. So it's disproportionately affecting them more because they're at a nutrient scarcity, but they have a surplus of food. But it's not the food that is on the outside of the aisles. And so in my mind, as an individual that's listening to this, right, that has a job, right, that is not worried about the roof over their head, well, maybe in this economy they might be, but is not normally there, I think that it comes back down to taking in information for you to learn conceptually, what you need to know to apply, but then goes back to something you just said a minute ago, and that's listening to your body. Because at the end of the day, I can give you recommendations on calorie intake. I can give you recommendations on movement. I can give you recommendations on exercise selection for your goals, for where you're trying to go and what time horizon. But at the end of the day, you might not respond to that the way that I intended you to. And you got to listen to yourself. Are we missing anything?
No, I mean, you kind of hit it on the head with, the haves and the have-nots, right? Where, there's probably a reason why there's a lack, and no disrespect to anybody out there, but like there's a lack of education on people's own health unless you kind of do it by yourself, go out and read, or get some type of education in the health field, because like you said, it's easy access to cheap foods, right, that are labeled as healthy, right? A lot of them
Let's
aren't,
say
but some are.
gluten-free and vegan and
Right,
high
sugar-free diet.
protein and keto and,
Yeah.
every buzzword.
Yeah, so we're not the first persons to preach this by any stretch of the imagination, right? But like, the aisles of the grocery store are awful, right? You want to stay to the perimeter. I think everybody's heard that probably. If you haven't heard that, then welcome. But yeah, foods that come with a label that tell you what's inside them are not foods. I hate to make that sound obvious, but foods that have an ingredient list on them is not a real food. So, but it's, and like you said, people that are listening to this, people that we can hopefully benefit from hearing this, is that listen to your body. It's going to tell you when you're not hungry, unless you're pumping it full of synthetic additives that want to shut off those negative feedback loops in the body, where you keep drinking your sodas or you keep eating, whatever it is, chips, popcorn, cookies, etc. Right? But just having the awareness that, you're the only person that truly gives a crap about your health. As a chiropractor, as a healthcare professional, like I do, right? But I can only care about it so much. I cannot care about it more than you. Like, James, if you ever wanted to come get adjusted, bud, right? Yeah, I'll take care of you. But that has to be your choice, right? I can't drive to you and say, hey, you know what? It's 11 o'clock, time to get adjusted, right? So, and I think people need to have this awareness that, hey, you know what? People can have your back, right? Entity and bodies can have your back, but at the end of the day, it's your choice. Whether it's what you eat, how much you eat, when you put it in your body, how much you exercise, what you choose to exercise. So when you have an accountability buddy or a group or anything that kind of helps you set up goals and achieve those goals, fantastic. But when those things, those people or that person's not around, it's still got to be up to you.
Yeah. And the only thing And you and I, I think you and I agree on a lot. I think that the one thing that I don't want this podcast to serve as is a fear mongering tactic for anyone that eats on the inside of the aisles, because I think that there's something that there's nuance that has to be understood there, right? When you say like, hey, the inside of the aisles are shit, you need to be on the outside. What, for anyone that's listening, what he's saying is that whole food sources of nutrition are on the outside of the grocery store, no matter what grocery store you're talking about. So think your fruits, your veggies, your lean meats, your eggs, your proteins, your milk, your non-dairy products that are substitute. All of that is on the outside. Usually the majority of all of your more healthy alternatives, right? If you want to just broad stroke it, are going to be on the outside. Now, does that mean that you're going to be 300 pounds if you eat stuff on the inside? Absolutely not, because your boy does it. Okay. First one to say, me, ding dong, shabba dabba ding dong. Here I am. But the thing that you have to be aware of is the quantity at which you're eating the stuff on the inside of the aisles. In some grocery stores, and so you can take out this part. There's beans, there's peas, there's other like canned veggies that are cheaper that are on the inside of the aisles. That's not a problem, right? But you do have to be aware of what volume you're eating things in, because, your 800 calorie pizzas that are smaller than a regular plate of food, and, your ice creams, your breakfast sandwiches, and a lot of other stuff that's packed full of stuff that is going to encourage your body and mentally tell you, right? Like chemically tell you that you can just keep eating more, is on the inside of those aisles. So I don't want this to serve as another point or piece of media that fear mongers everyone into existence or out of existence of eating everything, because we're not Carnivore MD. We're not Food Babe. We're not interested in doing that. However, if you're to look at a dietitian in the face that is clinically trained, they're going to tell you the more food that you can have from whole food sources, meaning you literally, the food is an ingredient, right? Think about when you make something in the kitchen, what are you putting in there? If you're putting foods in there, those are the kind of foods that a dietitian, a registered dietitian with an MS or a PhD is going to tell you to eat more of. Are they going to tell you that you're going to die if you eat Cheez-Its? No, you're probably not. You drank Gatorade? Probably not going to die, right? Eat gummy bears? Ding, ding, ding. Not going to die. But is it harder to control yourself? Absolutely. It is. Way harder to control yourself. So I know that Andy, very, very in tune, right? Very, very in tune to how your body feels with certain foods, right? With certain allergens, with certain types of things, with certain artificial sweeteners, etc. Like very in tune to how that makes you feel, right? And some things definitely rock the boat for you. Mm-hmm. Not as many food things rock the boat for me. So I have a little bit more leniency to eat more bullshit. And mentally, there's no feedback loop there. And it is what it is. For a lot of people, that's the case. But that can also be dangerous for you long term, because then you overconsume them. And even I've been in a position and am sometimes where I'm overconsuming stuff that I shouldn't. And not shouldn't because it's morally bad, but shouldn't because it doesn't set me up for the goals that I actually have. So I think that both of us, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, but both of us just want anyone that's listening to this to be empowered, to understand what is going on, and to have the mental model to walk through to be able to implement in their own life if they never listen to another person in health and wellness at all.
Yeah, 100% agree, man. Just want people to feel empowered. And I think you nailed it on the head. We're not trying to fear monger anybody. So it's just free access to education from two guys who have experimented a lot and made a lot of mistakes, but have also kind of found a path that kind of has worked for both of them. Yeah.
And I think that's it. And I think we'll end it there for this episode of Convos with Dr. Andy. We're back every single week. If you're watching us on YouTube, drop us a subscribe. We're trying to get that monetization going, baby. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and you're not seeing our so beautiful mugs, drop a follow, drop a download. It would be very beneficial. And if any of these conversations have ever provided any of you any value at all, if you would share it with a friend, share it with a colleague, share it with someone that's rocking and doing all the things we're talking about, share it with someone that could maybe benefit from being introduced to it. It would be ultimately beneficial to all parties. And also, if you want any specific topics covered, holla at your boy. DMs, comment section, email, holler at us, and we'll get rocking. So hope you'll have a great rest of your day, and thank you for your attention. Peace.